Hello again, St. John's friends and family. This is Pastor Brady coming to you on April 29th, Wednesday, and this is our midweek devotional. And as I come to you today, I'm thinking about how the pandemic has kept going on and how life has changed and how we await what's coming ahead. And last week we kind of talked about what would that new normal be. But I know in these days, things are getting stressful, we're getting anxious, we're getting nervous, we want to get out and do things. We have all those mix of feelings coming upon us right now. And to me, it kind of reminds me of a storm that is gathering from all different directions to kind of affect our different emotions and how we act and how we feel and how our daily lives go. And those storms can damage us. Temporarily, they can damage us long term, and they can have dramatic effects on our bodies, our minds, and our souls. And it's key in how we handle those storms and how we get through them together. And the other day, I was thinking about all the storms of life that are around us, and then last night, a movie happened to be on television, one you may remember from 1991, well, the movie was actually in 2000, but the actual incident happened in 1991. And it was called The Perfect Storm in a book and then a movie in 2000. But the incident is about a fishing boat that gets caught in what's called a perfect storm. They leave Massachusetts and they go up out into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Nova Scotia, and they go deeper out into the sea. And it just happens to be a hurricane's coming out of the south, a nor'easter is coming from the north, and another storm out over the ocean, and they all kind of converge in what meteorologists called a perfect storm. And this fishing boat was unable to escape that storm, and her crew of 6 perished, and they were never found. Parts of the boat washed up, but they were never found after that storm. And it made me think about the storms that are kind of gathering now and how we deal with the pandemic and with our emotions and with how we act. And what are the things that we hang on to get through the storm? If you watch the movie, and it has some actors in it you would know very well. I mean, it has George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, Diane Lane, and as they act out the parts, of course, they take some liberties with probably what the true story exactly was, but you can tell in the fishing boat captain, who is George Clooney, and his crew, they're out there to make their living. And because they love going out on the water, they love this job. Now, it is not a safe job, and of course, they want to get back to their family as quickly as possible. And so you can see it kind of pulling at the heartstrings, kind of pulling at their emotions, but they need to go out and make money to survive. And they haven't been catching a lot of fish. So they go deeper and farther out into the ocean. They risk more and more. They're hanging on to the idea that they need to make a living, that they need to provide. They're hanging on to the idea that this is their lifestyle and their livelihood. And even as they turn to venture back through the storm, and to get home as quickly as possible, because what happens is the ice machine on their boat has broken, and if they don't get back to the coast quickly, all of the fish they have caught will spoil, and they'll lose all that money. So they decide to go right through the storm. They can see it coming. They don't know quite how severe it is, but they're going to go right through that storm. And they're hanging on to all these things. First and foremost, getting to their families, but also making that money that they need to survive. And of course, they're a little headstrong in believing they will get through that storm, that they have the skill to do it. Now, we can head into a storm like that. We can hang on to the things that are so important to us, which is probably what's getting us down right now. We're hanging on to material things of the world and activities that we like, and we can't do them. And so we're getting more depressed and feeling more isolated, even more sad, because we're hanging on to things that in reality do not matter. Now, did it matter that fishing boat made it back to its family? That mattered. So they probably should have avoided the storm and not worried about making the money. because ultimately what mattered to their families was that they survived and they went around the storm, and that's what really was important. But they were hanging on to, they needed that money, and they were hanging on to some pride that they could get their way back through the storm, that they could conquer nature. Sometimes we hang on to those things and they get us in trouble. When we hang on to material things of the world or activities or events we think we have to be a part of. But the thing we really need to be hanging on to in the storms of life is Jesus Christ, because he is the one that calmed the stormy waters. He's the one that brings us up out of the storm and through the storm, no matter what we face. And those men, if they had faith and believed in Jesus Christ, you know what? Even though they perished in that storm, they got through the storm because they are in heaven with him. And likewise, whatever we face in life, even a storm that would lead us to death, even that kind of storm that we could not escape earthly, if we are in Jesus Christ, we would conquer the storm. But to get through the daily storms, to get through this pandemic, which seems to be a storm on our emotions and our way of life, we have to hang on to the right things. We can't be hanging on to the fact that we can't go to a movie or we can't go to a sporting event. We can't be hanging on to the fact that we can't sit down in a restaurant right now. We can't be hanging on to the fact that we're just afraid of the disease. Yes, we need to take the precautions, but we still need to live the lives we live as best we can where we are at. And most of all, we need to hang on to God, knowing he's there, he's loving us, he's watching over us, he's caring for us. He needs to be the one you hang on to. And if you look behind me, there's a reason that I picked this window in the sanctuary today. Hopefully you can see it. I know there's a little bit of a glare, but if you look up above my head, you should be able to see the anchor at the top of that window. This window in our sanctuary is actually dedicated to all of our deceased servicemen and women. But the anchor, that symbol of the anchor, recognizes that we all need to be anchored in the Lord. If we drop our anchor in stormy seas, but have the Lord at our side, we will find safe harbor. We will find refuge. We will find a way home. We will get through the storm. But if we're not anchored in the Lord, and we're anchored in the ways of the world, if we're hanging on to all the things we can't do right now, all the things we desire that are earthly, if we keep hanging on to those things, this storm will just get worse for us, especially emotionally, and even can damage us spiritually. And we need to take that far beyond just this pandemic, but any storm we face individually or together in the days, months, years to come, we need to be anchored in the Lord, because he is that safe harbor. He's like that lighthouse on the coast that allows the ships to come safely in. It leads them in by the light through the storm. Remember, he is the light of the world. He is leading us home. He's creating a path through the storm to safety, to refuge, to life everlasting. So as we see that symbol in the church today, as we see it in the stained glass and the anchor, can you remain anchored in the Lord the rest of the way through this pandemic? I believe you can. I believe we can together as a church family, as a community, as faithful believers. First and foremost, be anchored in the Lord. Hang on to Jesus. And then the things of the world will matter far less. So I hope you have a great rest of the week. I'll be seeing you in the videos to come this week and on worship on Sunday. Stay anchored into the Lord. Hang on to what matters, and that is Jesus. God bless. Amen.